Have you ever finished reading an entire chapter, closed the heavy book, and suddenly realized your brain is completely empty? You sit there staring at the cover, wondering if you just lost your memory or if you were entirely asleep with your eyes open. But here is the bizarre truth behind this everyday frustration. You are not losing your mind, and your memory is not fundamentally broken. Your brain actually flawlessly executed a primal survival mechanism directly against your own modern goals, intentionally wiping that information away. To understand why your mind violently rejects new knowledge, we need to uncover a hidden cognitive trap known as the Fluency Fault. When a sentence flows easily into our eyes or ears, we experience a very dangerous sensation of effortless neurological processing. Your frontal lobe immediately misinterprets this smooth, frictionless intake of information as actual long-term memory storage being successfully built. Because the input feels so seamless, we falsely assume that we have mastered the concept, confusing mere recognition with actual deep comprehension. This cognitive laziness means your brain tags the incoming data as merely familiar, rather than something crucial requiring permanent neurological lockdown. As a result, your mind takes the path of least resistance, treating that brilliant podcast or self-help chapter as disposable neurological entertainment. We become totally addicted to the comforting illusion of passive consumption, entirely avoiding the actual heavy lifting required to learn anything. And the moment that source material is closed, your biology triggers a 90% memory wipe, completely erasing hours of your valuable time. Think of passive reading as aggressively pouring premium, expensive water into a severely cracked plastic bucket at the bottom of a well. It feels incredibly refreshing in the exact moment you are doing it, giving you a massive, unearned spike of artificial productivity dopamine. But step away for just 5 minutes, and absolutely nothing is retained inside the container when you actually need a drink. You cannot brute force your way through this biological limitation by simply reading faster or aggressively staring at the textbook for longer hours. Our minds are biologically wired to fiercely conserve energy, actively running away from the incredibly high caloric burn of genuine knowledge retention. Unless you create intentional friction, your neurology will always choose the cheapest, laziest route available, dumping your newly acquired skills into oblivion. We have to stop relying on the dangerously misleading sensation of fluency and fundamentally change how we interact with incoming daily information. It is time to entirely abandon passive consumption and start utilizing a science-backed method to force your neural pathways to lock down. If you want to permanently stop wasting your precious hours pouring valuable knowledge into a hopelessly broken brain bucket, we have the solution. You need to actively hack your own neurology for real success, and that starts by joining our growing community of mental architects. Hit that subscribe button right now to upgrade your cognitive toolkit and master the hidden psychological frameworks driving your daily human behavior. Let's permanently fix that massive cognitive leak and transform your mind into an impenetrable fortress of practical, actionable, and life-changing intelligence today. Now, let us dive deep into the biological reality of why thinking actually physically hurts and exactly how we can exploit it. To truly understand why thinking actually hurts, we have to look at the harsh evolutionary biology governing our daily energy consumption. Active retrieval, which is the process of manually pulling information out of your brain, burns massive and unsustainable amounts of physical energy. Conversely, passive intake, like watching a lecture or reading a paragraph, is incredibly cheap and requires almost zero biological effort. Because your brain is an ancient survival machine designed to aggressively conserve calories, it will instinctively always choose the cheapest route possible. It actively deceives you into believing that this low-effort consumption is successfully building intelligence, keeping you safely away from exhaustion. But if you do not experience that uncomfortable cognitive friction, those critical neural pathways are absolutely never going to lock down. That mental burn you feel when struggling to remember something is not failure. It is the physical sensation of a permanent memory forming. This explains the dangerous mirage of highlighting, which remains one of the most common and useless study habits in the modern world. Dragging a bright yellow marker over a sentence feels incredibly productive and gives you an instant, unearned spike of fake dopamine. But it is just an empty visual ritual that perfectly feeds the fluency fault without building a single, solid neural connection. Repeatedly rereading a textbook chapter traps you in the exact same biological illusion of effortless mastery and total fake competence. The text simply becomes more visually familiar to your eyes, masking the terrifying reality that your brain actually remains completely empty. The second you are actually forced to reproduce that exact information without looking at the source, your mind abruptly goes blank. We must permanently shatter this fake productivity loop right now and violently introduce deliberate friction into your daily learning routine. Here is your first actionable brain hack: the Active Retrieval Anchor. It is time to forcefully intercept your own cognitive laziness. After just 5 minutes of reading a book or watching an online lecture, you must abruptly and physically close the material. Force yourself to sit in total silence and aggressively stare at a completely blank piece of paper sitting on your desk. Aggressively squeeze the core structure of what you just learned directly out of your raw memory and physically write it down. That exact moment of painful, stuttering friction is precisely when your long-term memory circuit forcefully and permanently activates for good. You are finally forcing your brain to spend the expensive calories required to actually own that critical piece of human knowledge. Your second actionable strategy is the Feynman Filter, a legendary framework designed to ruthlessly expose your hidden intellectual blind spots. Run a mental simulation where you must explain the complex concept using only the simplest words possible to a 10-year-old child. The exact microsecond you begin to stutter, hesitate, or desperately hide behind complex industry jargon, you have instantly failed the test. That tiny stutter is not a minor mistake. It exposes a massive, glowing knowledge gap that you need to urgently isolate. Stop passively reading just to feel temporarily smart, and start aggressively retrieving today to build an unbreakable fortress of true intelligence.